Right, and we are live. Good evening, good evening, good evening, and welcome to Forever Rugby on Forever Sports. It is Thursday. I don't know how it's Thursday again. I mean, this whole year thing is just, I feel like I'm just constantly talking to you guys. And that's nothing against you. It just kind of worries me about the kind of 7 days in between the time. Although, at least, with Chris, I feel like I haven't seen him in a while. So, um, he is making the comeback. But as you can see, I am joined by Wes, Chris, and Rudes. You will see two of them actually a lot this weekend. And you'll see a lot less of me this weekend, which is going to be interesting. It's going to be fun. I'm actually taking a day off, which is going to be cool. And handing over the reins to the other buggers. So I'll talk a little bit about that towards the end of the show when we go through what's going on this weekend. But apart from that, as we go around, Rudes has got a beer. Wes is seeing other parts of South Africa, and Chris looks a bit more settled in the UK. Gentlemen, I've got a glass of wine. How are we all doing?
Happy Stevie boy. Well, it's good to spend Thursday evenings with you.
No, thank you, dude. Thank you.
I didn't really miss you, but Daddy missed me. Oh, maybe.
Wow, wow.
Uh,
It's fine.
I'll
It's fine. You know what?
Sorry, Stevie.
I found my affirmation somewhere else.
That's always good to be with you guys.
Yeah, well, don't be careful when you start sort of throwing it out because we're gonna have to look at your betting slide, and you've taken us 3 weeks to get here because I think in the video that you're hoping that we're all gonna get what happened.
You called me a bitch this afternoon, so I'm just going to carry on with that theme through the evening. So I might as well.
Fair enough. I'm going to put to everybody else watching. I'm going to put a poll in the comments asking: will South Africa, will the Springboks win this weekend? And it's an interesting question because I don't think. I mean, we're not favourites. When for me, we as Boks in the Argentina, we don't have the greatest record there in recent times. And we have gone with a slightly experimental team. Oh, my bloody headphones are acting up.
Come on, Stephen, get it together, man. Pointing the Emmy right now. But no, looking forward to this weekend. I think no worries, Steve. You're back.
Yeah, we're back. But yeah, let's talk about last weekend before we talk about this weekend. And Wes was on the halftime show, Rudes was on the halftime show, and we were all quite a bit disappointed with what we saw. So Chris, I'll go to you first, and then Wes and Rudes can sort of pick up where they left off at halftime about what they thought. But Chris, your sort of general thoughts on the game last weekend: scrappy, not our best. Do we need to worry?
Yeah. Do we need to worry? I don't know. I think a lot of people are seemingly starting to worry, and rightly so, because we haven't picked the same team through this competition. People are asking now, what is our strongest team? I suppose that was probably the team against the All Blacks, but as we all know, they weren't ready for that game. And it's just a difference, obviously, what you're seeing with New Zealand. Okay, they've earned the right to basically change their team this week, but I don't know. The books just seem to be playing silly buggers at the moment. How I thought it went, I mean, I was quite excited. I liked the team. I thought, okay, this could be a similar pattern to Australia game up at Ellis Park, first pitch, first game. But we just didn't seem like we actually really cared that much about the game. Argentina definitely looked more up for it. So yeah, it was actually very disappointing, and we can't really take much in it. I think we were winning. We looked all right as we do against Argentina. If we play up to our standards at home, generally we are comfortable, but we let them back in the scoreline. I don't know if it flattered them, but we win. But what do we take away? We won't see another team like that again. Maybe at the World Cup. Got a whole new team this week, so let's just take the win and move on, I guess. The World Cup year, I don't think we're going to care anything about this game come World Cup time either way, even if we win it or not. I think we obviously clearly use this competition. Well, Russia and are using it to check players, maybe just give them game time. Maybe they just want the players to have a run, have a hit out, and not go into the World Cup with nothing. So yeah, disappointing. I would have liked us to just had a stronger performance. I was expecting a bounce back. But yeah, the RGs played well. They came off Australia win. They really looked like they wanted to win the game. So yeah, hopefully we'll maybe talk about next week, but we'll see what happens when we go there. Not so confident that we might pull it off.
Yeah, and before we talked about last week, before we talked about this week, sorry. Chris mentioned the whole, new team, new team this weekend, and we are chopping and changing quite a bit. And obviously, there's a fine line between wanting to give people a chance and wanting to rotate the squad. You also want to play players into the ground before a very grueling World Cup. But obviously, the result in that is sometimes it can become quite fractured. You kind of don't find your the fluidity, and I think that's what we're seeing in New Zealand, who Ian Foster went for first time properly, basically just renamed the same side for the Bairstow Cup, and has had a bit of more continuity in selections. So, I mean, can we use this as an excuse? Let's put it like that. Can we kind of use it as an excuse and sit there saying, well, we are changing a few things and it's bound to have a little bit of issues there? Or do you think, you look at the players, they've been together for so long, there is so much experience around there, that's not really an excuse?
Yeah, no, I would feel a lot better if we performed better in New Zealand, right? Because that we can sort of agree is our strongest side. Call it what you will, but we want to call it a block A. We don't want to upset Eddie Jones, because if we call it a block B tied, he gets a bit touchy there.
Correct.
But we can agree that was our strongest box side. And if we had performed better, I'm not saying win, just played better, I feel like then the chopping and changing could be justified, because you can point to that game and say, look, with our strongest side, the boys are clicking well. We know that works. We're trying to find new things and blood players and give them time. But we didn't play that well. And so I do think the chopping and changing is a bit concerning. I understand why they're doing it, but no, I'm totally with you. I think a bit of continuity might do everyone good. It might settle everyone a bit and just give the guys time to get into that rhythm. And yeah, maybe throwing the baby out of the bathwater, whatever that saying means, but that's how it feels. Like it's just a lot. But yeah, we'll have to see. Hopefully they prove us all wrong and it works a dream in the World Cup.
And yeah, I think it's an interesting concept. And for me, an interesting discussion and narrative that's building is the idea that players are out of form. So, for example, I've had a couple of comments, and I've kind of called them out. Somebody said, Lua Tiaga is playing such horrible rugby. I wouldn't say that he's guaranteed the World Cup. And I replied to him saying, are you basing that on the 43 minutes that you saw in New Zealand? Or are you including the almost 1,000 minutes of the Japanese top league he did play when he played and came and was in the team that was in the runner-up? And they did say, well, no, based on the 43 minutes. So, which is, for me, a pretty poor time to judge. And Rudes, we're talking about players on form and off form. People say Jasper Wiese is not on form, despite coming off the back of another stellar premiership. People are talking about the fact that Franco Mostard's, in a really bad form at the moment. We've only seen him for 50 minutes. So how concerned are you about the players, especially the Japanese players who haven't played in 2 months? How concerned do we need to be about them? Or do we think it's one of those things, right? Well, first game was always going to be rustiness. So for example, I thought even Etzebeth, for example, was miles better last weekend. There are a couple of players who definitely have gotten a bit better. Do we need to be concerned about some of those Japanese players who haven't started well? Or do you think it's just a case of, in 2 games' time, everybody should have at least about 120, 130 minutes. By then, we should know exactly where we are, and hopefully everybody should be up to standard.
I think for the sake of last weekend's game, initially I must put my hand up myself and say, regarding the incident with Grant Williams, just to touch on that, and I'll tie in with your question and answer it. It's like, initially I did think that the fullback was committed to the charge down, but then looking at it afterwards and coming back to what we see in terms of player safety, what they're trying to do, World Rugby, in keeping players safe, he was never in a position to actually charge that ball down and keep the player safe in terms of Grant Williams. But now that, for me, was an incident where South Africa, it's sort of the life was sucked out of them. So we look at it and we say, yes, they scraped through for the win. But I think we shouldn't look at it and say we should be too concerned or negative, because I was also looking at some statistics regarding our build-up to the 2019 World Cup, and our percentage ratio of wins was also around the 65-70% mark. And if we look at the build-up to this World Cup, we're around that mark. Except for this World Cup, we've got more experience. So it's not all negative for me. I think there are players, the Franco Mostert, that need to sort of show something. But I also want to imagine that the coaches by now, I know this is one of the first warm-up games, but I think they would have an idea that the experience would also be important for this World Cup.
Yeah, I think that point the coaches have an idea is a very, very good point, because we know that these coaches, if nothing else, are meticulous with their planning, and they've been saying and they've been repeating that they've had the plan of who's going to play where since like February. You know, Jesse Creel even said in a press conference, said, you know, when the first lineman camp in February, when they had it in Durban and they Skype people in, the coaches basically said, right, here's the roadmap. This game, this is going to be the kind of team. This game, this is going to be the kind of team. We're then going to give these guys a chance here for Argentina, and kind of this is how it's going to go. And I think people, and that's the one thing, even in Chasing the Sun, players are never in the dark of what's going on, and there is always a plan. Whether that plan will work, that's kind of what we have to wait and see. But
Steve,
yeah.
Steve, just a quick review. You touched on 2019. Correct me if I'm wrong, boys. Did we win or did we draw against New Zealand?
We drew.
Yeah, and that's it. And I think the key is the momentum. And I think taking momentum into a big tournament, I think, plays a role. I think that's what New Zealand certainly got that, because even though, it seems like Foster's seemingly knowing what his best team is and has been picked them week out, and you can see a New Zealand team that's getting more and more cohesive and, quite frankly, scarily dangerous again. And we're not doing that. So it doesn't feel like we're riding into the World Cup with momentum. But it's just going to be interesting, because if you look at our group, I mean, I don't think we're going to have any luxury to change our team. We're going to have to go full strength through that whole group to get through it. So, I really do hope that he knows his team. It's just, I think, like I said, I think that was for me, it was a shock. It was a big confidence builder, that New Zealand game. And it looked like it gave that team belief. And now at the moment, I'm not, okay, we hammered Australia, but how excited were we like 3 weeks ago after that game? And we are thinking, oh, what's going on? But I think, I trust these coaches. I trust Jacques and Rassi. I mean, they've proven it already. And we are, so just say, you're right. Maybe not to be too negative.
Yeah, well, I think that's the point. So I'm sort of going to get to now is sort of the whole idea of the plan. I think personally, this Argentina game, I think in their minds they kind of always knew was going to be a bit of a iffy game. I don't think there was ever going to be a intent on sending best players. You know, you're kind of thinking about the travel the week before, the potential injuries going to Argentina. It's always a tough place to play. But that momentum, I think, is very crucial. And I'd imagine we kind of probably going. I think we would have liked to have beaten New Zealand. I don't think that was part of the plan. I don't think. Look, we don't plan to lose any games, but I'm pretty sure the plan was to really have a go at New Zealand, try and beat them, sort of show everybody that we can beat any side, beat Argentina, win the Rugby Championship, rotate for this weekend, throw a couple of other players, and then go, right, we're now going to name our squad on the 8th of August, which is next week Tuesday, and we then play against Wales for the first time on the 19th, and then New Zealand a week later. So,
well, imagine we beat the All Blacks in that last game.
But this
imagine
is the thing.
The expectations then.
And for example,
we won it already. We haven't even got there.
The All Blacks. Let's just say, so the All Blacks have rotated this weekend. We're going to get to those games this weekend. The All Blacks have rotated. Australia's gone pretty full strength. Eddie Jones is basically named the same side, which actually didn't play as badly as the scoreline probably reflected. So, for example, we talk about New Zealand having that momentum. They've gone 3 in the bounce. They're looking like world beaters. Everybody's suddenly saying they're the best team in the world. They lose this weekend. The next time they play against matches against us. For example, we beat them. All of a sudden, New Zealand go 2 losses on the bounce, and maybe panic stations sort of arise there, and we go, well, we just beat New Zealand, who were looking so good. So it's amazing how things sort of change and twist and turn. But where's this weekend? It's an interesting side for me. I think it ticks every single box in terms of players that need game time. Lua Tiago was supposed to play, but is sick, so that's literally there's no other option there. But Franco Moster's getting a start. Jean Claire's getting another opportunity. Marvin always going to play because Lua Tiago is injured, but you likes of Joseph Drebel gets some minutes. Dion Fourie gets an opportunity. Monty Buck still going to get another opportunity at 10. When you saw that team, were they? I mean, we knew the 26-man squad, so we kind of knew that there was always going to be a scrum off sitting out. There was always going to be a prop sitting out, which we kind of knew and hoped was going to be Stephen Kitsoff. the question was who was going to be the unlucky player. Apart from that, it's going to turn out to Leo Diago because of sickness. But for me, what was your sort of initial reaction before we I want to talk a little about the scrum half situation, but just as overall, when you looked at that team, what did you say?
Yeah, no, to the team selection overall, it was probably mixed. I think there was the feeling we spoke about earlier, that sort of maybe craving a bit of consistency and saying, look, we start putting 2-3 performances together that look good. Okay, then we can start to try experimenting. So the part of me was like, oh, are we changing it up again? But then another part of me was very excited. I mean, again, we're blessed with great depth and different oaks in different positions, and there's like a lot of exciting talent on the field. We're not gonna we're not gonna hone in on one particular pairing like the Williams and Liebok thing of last week, just in case that whole disaster happens again. And as you said, we'll get to the 9 situation now, but it is exciting to see Liebok at 10. I think they, hopefully the coaches are saying, right, we've got faith in you in this position. Go out, show us what you can do. But because again, Reese and I were there for that game last week, or with you guys here on Favour Rugby, and Reese asked me at halftime or just before the half, what do you think of Liebok's performance? And I couldn't really tell you what he did. He just was there, and so hopefully, again, if we start to get a bit more on front football, we can start to see a bit more of that Liebok that we're so used to, that we're used to seeing in the other competitions. But no, Steve, I think overall exciting. I think it's different. It's experimental. That's clearly what it is. And I think we accept it for what it is. So let's see if the experiment works.
But also I'm thinking, guys, if Australia, for some miracle, had beaten the All Blacks and we had a chance to win, I think we wouldn't have seen that performance. And if we have a plan, like you said, if the team sheet's basically been predetermined, I think there was a bit of motivation levels lacking there. It seemed like it kind of ended up seeming like it was a little bit of a hit out. But if we were playing for the Rugby Championship, I think we would have got into a 20-point lead and never surrendered that lead. So I think that was just what looked like was missing there. The guys just kind of packed up shop at 60 minutes and we're moving on to the next game.
I also think, and when he's excused, but I do think that Grant Williams thing just completely derailed everything. I think he's such a different scrum up to all the other ones that there must have been a whole different game plan and idea on the cards, and then it kind of all just went haywire. But Rudes this weekend in Argentina, it's a tough place to play. Augustin Creevy is set to become the. I was actually checking to see if they've actually named the team. It should be right now. He's set to become the first Argentinian player ever to reach 100 caps. I mean, in Argentina with an emotional occasion, not a fun place to play rugby. Do we have a chance? And are we favourites, or do you think this is a game where the Argentina are going to come out firing and it's going to be a lot to deal with?
I think the momentum for Argentina would be in the fact how they fought back in the last game where we narrowly won. So for them, they're going to draw on that sort of to create that passion and intensity. For me, the issue would be with our combinations and how we've changed the team so much from one week to another. So I don't want to not back the boys to pull it through on Saturday, but I think it's going to be a real challenge because looking ahead to the World Cup, this is where all the roads meet now. The final gates open here at these warm-up fixtures, and it'll be interesting to see what sort of game plan South Africa employ, obviously with the intention of mind of winning the game, but then also looking at the final sort of jigsaw pieces of the puzzle coming together for whichever players they had in mind for the World Cup. So it's that sort of balance. But again, it's having faith in the coaches and getting us behind South Africa. We've got more experience, and I'm backing us to win this weekend, but I don't think by any means it's going to be easy.
Yeah, I tend to agree, and I think a bit like what I was kind of saying last week is we can sit there and acknowledge, and I was saying, I was kind of using this I wasn't using as justification, but I was saying, for example, last week we mustn't pretend like Argentina are a bad team. They are a quality side. They're only going to get better. They've got a lot of players. So, for example, looking at the team now this weekend, Santiago Cordera's back, who's an absolute demon when he wants to be. So they've got a couple of nice players into this weekend. They've gone pretty consistent with their side. But so it's a good side, but it's one of those things as well. Yes, sit there going, yeah, but at the end of the day, we can't sit there and say it's a good side. We've got to get to that mentality, that ruthlessness of, yes, it's a good side. We're still going to beat them. Yes, it's an emotional occasion. We're going to be able to shut that out. We're going to beat them because that's kind of what the quality sides can do. I titled this video, the coaches under pressure? And there's been a lot of knee-jerk reaction. They always are. Springbok fans are very emotional supporters. We are South Africans. We're very emotional. It's, the load shedding with its explosions. We've got earthquakes. We've got tornadoes happening. It's a tough time down here, so you can't really blame us for being emotional. But a lot of people were freaking out about it. And in fact, a lot of people last week were saying that last week's performance kind of shows you won't win the World Cup, which I thought was a hell of a conclusion to make. What kind of pressure are the coaches under, Christian? I mean, you said, for example, you said you trust them. Are they under pressure, or do you think they're sitting in the desk going, we've got a plan, we know how to win the World Cup?
No, they can absolutely not be under pressure at this point in time, what they've done and what they've done with the Springbok team. We know, I think we all know what they have been doing. I mean, obviously, would love to know what the thought process is that we want to chop and change, when I would have been picking close to a similar team like New Zealand have been. And if we had won, maybe this was the game we would change, like probably, and then go into the final two with the strongest team. No, I don't think they're under pressure. It's not the coaches that I'm worried about. Okay, there are some players I'm worried about. So I'm also thinking about arm. I'm thinking about some of those forwards. I am a little bit worried about form, but I'm not to say that these players aren't capable of bringing that back and when it matters. So no, I don't think it's under pressure. What the pressure is the draw. The Boks don't have the right to have the draw. The draw is going to defeat us if we lose, because we're going to have to play some really big back-to-back games, and it's going to be tough for any team to do that, even New Zealand and Ireland and France. I just don't know that this team will be able to do that. It's going to be very tough. Once you get through all of that, then you got a semi and a final. It's brutal. So I don't think it's the team and the coaches. I think we got a very good chance. But no, if that's in short, I don't think there's pressure. I think we got to back the boys, we back the squad, we got a great squad, and we just got to go give it the best shot.
Yeah, and look, I mean, that whole sort of the group thing, Jacques spoke about the fact that they're targeting that Scotland game. They're saying if they can win that Scotland game, that changes it a lot, because they'll rotate against Romania. We kind of know this because we should be able to rotate against Romania and win. And then you go full strength against Ireland, and if you lose against that Ireland side, then you have to go full strength against Tonga. But you beat that Ireland side, you can probably afford to rotate against Tonga. So it's going to be amazing how it kind of all plays out.
Well, yeah, I'm worried about like I remember Samoa, when Samoa took out Jean de Villiers in 2007. I can see some Tongan taking out a player to the
which is why we have to beat Ireland, because if we beat Ireland, it means you can go and take your big players and say, right, go forth and sit in there, and you go and say, right, Andreas Days, you're gonna get hammered, but go forth. Go and nail a couple
take it for the team, buddy.
Yeah,
just take it for the team.
Exactly. I want to get into the scrum half thing. In terms of focusing on selection, there's a lot of selection we could talk about. I don't think there's much point in spending time talking about a Jean-Luc Dupree and Evan Roos, who I don't think are going to the World Cup. But I want to talk about the scrum half thing, because a year ago, Jaden Henderson looked like we would not only be going to the World Cup, but starting at the way he'd actually benched Faf de Klerk, and Faf actually lit a bit of a fire under Faf's arse. And he started to play a lot better. Not involved this weekend. Jacques Nienaber basically saying, they did see him last week. They know exactly what he brings. They've got information about him and saying, this doesn't mean he's not going to the World Cup at all. He was unlucky not to get selected. Surely you will not be in a World Cup squad having played 0 Springbok minutes this year and no rugby since about February.
It would be a wild card if they did select him, because as you said, he's not got any minutes under his belt, and especially with the combinations in the squad and all that kind of stuff. I mean, again, it might be a freak accident, like the issue with Grant Williams now and him being out, that they might feel like, crap, we actually have to take someone on. But no, his not fall from grace or fall from form, but the fact that he's fallen out of the Springbok squad, so drastically, has been quite a shock. As you said, a year ago, whatever, he was almost guaranteed to start, ahead of Faf, and then it's just sort of fallen off. So yeah, very, very interesting selection sort of happening there, and definitely something. I mean, I don't know. Ask me to put money on it. I don't see him making the World Cup squad, but stranger things have happened.
Yeah, well, we all know that Chris would like to take Kobus Raylock ahead of him. So We don't need
Well,
to
it's
go
a
there.
no-brainer. I don't even know why we're having this discussion.
I
That's it.
genuinely
It's
think
the-
if Grant Williams had had a stormer last
Yeah,
weekend,
yes,
I do
yeah.
think Cobus Redhoff's place would have actually been, and Grant Henderson
I
was going to
agree.
play this weekend. I think it would have been quite interesting.
Yeah, yeah. But just talk about just quick. Maybe I know you're going to go on Stevie, but who are we selecting 9-10 first big game against Ireland? Who's the starter 9-10?
Against Ireland or Scotland?
Ireland, the big. Oh,
Scotland's the first
Scotland.
game.
Obviously, we're going to be picking our best sides. Okay,
So
Scotland.
Scotland. Well, I think it's got to be Faf Andre at this stage. As
Still,
long as Andre gets back to full fitness.
And Libok is the 10 if he's not around.
Yeah, I think unfortunately I think it'll be a bit like the last World Cup where Libok will play Romania and maybe he'll play Tonga. He won't make a bench. I think Damien Williams says will be our player 23 for every single match of the World Cup, and I think Pollard will start for every gap match bar like a Romania. Yeah, Ruud, what do you reckon? The 9-10.
So for me, I'm a big Grant Williams fan. So last week put a real corkscrew and little screw in the spokes because I would have loved to have seen a scenario where Grant Williams and Hendrik Pollard have the game against New Zealand together. But just touching on the last game this coming weekend, against Argentina, we've beaten New Zealand as world champions in New Zealand. We've beaten Australia, we've beaten France, we've beaten England on their home turf. We surely also can't be having a discussion whether we're going to win this weekend. So obviously there are trials and errors. Coaches want to see things. But from my side, we have to get into the mentality that we are world champions and that from here on in, we're going to win every game. Whatever combination, we've got it sorted. We have faith.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. And I think that is probably why people have said that this World Cup, this current generation of Springboks are not one of the great teams. Well, maybe they are one of the great teams, but not the greatest team, compared to like the New Zealand dominance in 2011, 2015, because they haven't had that consistency where they have been able to beat teams. I mean, I think there's a stat actually that I think we've only won like 3 big tests in a row, like once or twice since the last World Cup. We kind of tend to drop games here and there. Look, I think it's very difficult to compare generations given the fact that there was the COVID year of no rugby. There was the British and Irish Lions tour, which was behind closed doors. And so we haven't had the ideal setting in between these years. Very different situation to what was happening 10 years ago. But do you think that's fair? And do you think that's why maybe there is a little bit of doubt is that we haven't been able to, since becoming world champions, establish ourselves as the gold standard team,
I mean, like we were world champions in 2019. I always find it very interesting how that title, I know it only happens every 4 years, but how that title sort of stays with you for that time where
and
it's
almost
like,
haunts you.
Yeah, absolutely. And teams aren't in the same form they were when they became world champions. So, it's a lovely badge to have, and they obviously deserve it at the time. But for me, as soon as that World Cup is over, you almost stop being world champions. I know it sounds ridiculous, but you have to continually prove that you are world champions, and you do that by beating every other team, which we, necessarily haven't done, but we did in the World Cup. So, if you ask me who's looking like world champions, I'd point to Ireland and France because they've been the most consistent, sort of playing all that time. But I hear it. I understand it's a mentality thing. You've got that badge, you've got the target on your back, everyone's coming for you. We spoke about last week how the Boks tend to perform better if they are sort of in an underdog position as well. So I don't think this necessarily hurts us too much. I think they will savor the fact that actually they're not, seen as going in as favorites, and they'll have a point to prove and a chip on the shoulder. So I think we're going in with fire in the bellies and hopefully something to prove. I think that's when we really come into our own.
Yeah, and let's hope sort of the start of the alliance we can kind of go into the World Cup with that. They've written. I mean, you can just hear the speeches. Do it for the load shedding. They don't respect us. They've written us off. Everyone's pulling up the works in the change room there. Rusty Russ was saying, "Do it for the gas explosion." Jacques was saying, "Do it for the all the issues." So we do kind of need a retro, don't we? 1995. Nelson Mandela saying, "Unite the the cause. It was load shedding in 2007, I think, actually. So maybe it actually bodes well that we're probably going to be at about stage 10 by the time we get to the World Cup. I feel like the government's sort of building us towards creating Chasing the Sun version 2.0.
Yes,
I mean, I've been calling, so I'm not changing my tune. I know, Roots, you might not like this because I'm loving your optimism, but I'm not seeing us going past the quarterfinals. I'm sorry if it's France or New Zealand, but if we do, can you imagine we get through Ireland, France, New Zealand semi, and we only need to flip and lose to the Aussies in the final? That'll just be.
No, if we get
Chris,
to
did you ever hear Nigel Owens ridicule Chris Robshaw when there was a decision? He's like, Christopher.
Is that what you wanted to do to me now? Yeah.
Yeah.
disorder in the ranks
Well,
here. We're going to have the celebrity boxing match between Chris and Rudes.
Let's talk in the build up to the quarter. God forbid we get to bloody quarters. Obviously, we will.
We'll
Let's
get
talk
to
in
the
the build up
quarters.
to the quarters. I
Yeah.
might have a different tune.
Yeah, I suppose it also depends on
Please,
what we see
please.
during the group stages.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's what I mean. Exactly. It's so
Yeah.
hard to call right now with what's still up ahead. It's a long way away. The quarterfinals there.
Yeah. Well, now speaking of calling, Chris, it is your time. And before we move on to the
Oh.
weekend's action and lots and lots of weekend action after a very quiet weekend last weekend by comparison, it's everything stopped. But we are moving towards our betting sim, which is brought to you, ladies and gentlemen, by Boyle Sports. They have just launched in the country. They are new. And I promise you, please do get your comments in. By the way, we will be going to the comments after this. But we are now partnered officially with Boyle Sports, who are powering the show. And please do go and support them. Well, first not even support them. Get on the Chris train here. As you can see, the season record is still pretty decent. And we're now going to be using Boyle Sports for this segment. The link is in the description. I'm going to put it into the chat whilst Chris takes us through his bets for the weekend. But yeah, there's a pretty cool sign-up special. You can get a free bet based to the value of whatever you deposit, up to 1,000 rand when you sign up. So go and get that sorted on Boyle Sports. And Chris, tell us where we're putting our money this weekend.
Yeah, so as we should do a recap as much as I don't want to, because as you can see, that double 3 weeks ago was an absolute nightmare. That was South Africa plus 10 against New Zealand. We losing by 15, and then had Aussies to beat the Argentinians, and we all know what happened there. So that was a damn scud, unfortunately. But I think if I can recall, I said I wasn't overly confident. So it was a 1 or 2, not even a 1 unit play, I think. So we didn't lose too much there. And the season record is still, that's pretty decent. Steven, we'll take that return on investment. We've got quite a few units. So yeah, let's move on to this week. So yeah, using Boyles now. So obviously I'm using the markets that are available at time of going to show. And I try to pick out obviously what's my best at this point in time. I think we haven't touched it, but yeah, the NPC, one of my favorite competitions and betting competition, starts this week. So tomorrow it kicks off with Tasman versus Otago. Tasman generally have a good record. They didn't do too well last season. But to kick it off at home, definitely the stronger team. Just taking them on the win. Yeah, the cap was 9 when I was actually looking at these bets, and then it moved out to 12 at showtime. So we lost a bit of value on Tasman. We would have got about 2.40 for this bet. But the money came for Tasman, so that makes me also a little bit more confident that we're definitely on the right side here, because Otago away form is generally not good. So comfortable with that. And maybe this is controversial, but I don't think it is. This is just purely my rugby and betting brain. I'm going for Oz plus 24.5 points here. Yes, they got hammered last week, but the teams that have been picked, Oz actually have picked a closer team than back-to-back teams, which is a good thing for me. New Zealand have won, and I just remember betting on these games when Australia do run New Zealand close. It's usually the third betters low when New Zealand have already won, and New Zealand have made changes. They've run them close, and they have actually beaten them on occasions in Hong Kong, if I can remember. So I think 24 is just too many points and might seem scary, but I'm calling a New Zealand 10-15 point win here. So I like this cap to be covered. So that's a double. We'll go 2.5 units here, medium confidence here. get some units back after last week, 2.5 units, and then I put a lean in there because I've shown
before
some guys will do
before
it.
before you describe the lean, can you just explain what a lean is to people?
So a lean is so when a punter bets, that double is like an official punt, is official pick. I'm officially picking it. I'm actually putting money down. That's my punt. A lean is something that you're not sure yet. You're looking at that market, but you haven't pulled the trigger yet. If you want to bet on it, and you wouldn't usually put it to your record. So that's why I wouldn't add it to the record, because I haven't decided if it's official. Because this is also more a field bet. Like I think Oz will come out hard. I think Oz will get a try and a penalty at least to cover that 10 points. I quite like them to break 10 this week, and they won 7. Last week I thought it was going to be good as well. They only got 7. They missed that. Carter missed the penalty in front of the poles, and that's the bet in. So it's just a lean to go on the half time. So if anyone's interested, I quite like that, but we won't put it to the record this week. Let's just build the units up again, and then we'll go bigger later in the year.
Oh, there we go. Well, thank you very much, Chris, and big shout out to Boyle Sports. I'm actually carrying on Boyle Sports right now, having a look, and I'm actually going to share my screen in a little bit, and we can actually have a look at some of the odds which are being put out there, and I think that we're going to use that base as our basis, because we're going to have to talk about some more rugby this weekend, because the Summer Nation series officially kicks off, ladies and gentlemen. There is France, Scotland, which has got my eye. There's England, Wales, both very experimental teams, which I think will be fun to watch. And then Italy are going to pump Ireland, which is going to be fun as well. And we'll have to catch the highlights of that, because that's unfortunate at the same time as the Bok game. But while I bring it up, where's a couple of interesting games? New Zealand, Australia. Let's start with that one. The fact that we've spoken about a little bit. But Eddie Jones backing his boys. He's actually captain, Take McDermott. And as I say, let's go to Wales, he disappears. You know, I mean, you got to love. I mean, if he's not willing to make a punt, you know, then at least you could just tell us. Well, then, Reece, we'll go to you. Eddie Jones has backed a lot of the same team. He's backed Carter Gordon once again. He said that, you know, fly halves take time to settle in, and so he wants to back him. And he's actually given the captaincy to Take McDermott, which I thought was an interesting decision. Do Australia have a chance, or do you think that this is just Eddie Jones covering his bases in case, you know, there are injuries and stuff in the World Cup?
I think he's getting a bit of a difficult time at the moment from the Australian media and international media, and rightfully so. Australia have been under the pump, and he's come back sort of with ambition, and his mantra has been that they're out there to win the World Cup. So for them, winning this game is crucial to sort of win over the public opinion and get the support behind them. In terms of their selections, like you mentioned, it's pretty much the same. Whereas New Zealand have got more of an experimental team. They've got, I think, 3 debutants in their side. So if they were as fragile as anything, it would be this weekend. But judging from their winning mentality and the momentum that they've had, I think it's going to be a real challenge. And again, mounting pressure for Eddie Jones leading up to the World Cup. But again, they're in the group with all those weird sides. So they're on that side of the draw where I don't think he feels the pressure as much as the coaches are on our side of the draw.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, in terms of that game, as you can see, Australia being given a massive chance by the bookies to beat them, sitting at 12. There, that market for Australia and New Zealand. Chris, do you think that's a fair thing, or do you think do you think Australia have got a better than a 12-1 chance?
Yeah, no, it's maybe worth a small punt if you fancy it.
I must admit, I do fancy it, because I'm all for calling the upset. People will know that about me, and one of them hasn't really come through so far this season.
I'll be honest, that handicap, I think it's 22.5. For me, that's too high. I know it seems scary, but it's just all the bettors, all the rugby I've watched, and like I say, maybe with that, like we're saying, there's pressure on Eddie Jones, but at the same time, is there pressure? Because I mean, I don't think anyone's going to expect much of them, maybe. And I think, you know, when these teams, New Zealand, for me, New Zealand, they've built a bit of momentum on that team they had been picking. When they've picked different teams, like in the past year or 2 years, they're not as strong and as cohesive. So I think this is a great opportunity for Australia. I believe they're going to run them close. I don't know if they're going to win, but that handicap for me is way too high. So if anyone on the show are punters, I've given that in a double, but happily take that plus 22 if you want to have a little punt on the game.
Right, fair enough. Right, Wes is back, which means I get to talk to him about some of the European games happening. And let's kind of go through it. So Scotland versus France, and Scotland at home. This for me is a very interesting market, and again, maybe something needs to go to Chris to sort of talk about it a little bit. But Wes, I mean, it's a Scottish side. It's not a bad Scottish side. It's not. It's pretty close to being as strong as they can. Finn Russell, the best flyer from the world, is captaining it.
You've only said that because Reese is not here to say Richie Mo'unga and
don't come here with Richie Mo'unga. It comes in with 3 good games this year, and 2 good games this year, and all of a sudden he's back to being the best. Finn Russell, the GOAT, captaining Scotland. I would say to the World Cup, except for the fact that would mean we're probably going to get knocked out. So.
Is Mo'unga not as good as Intermac? Or were we not Intermac fans?
Well, as I said, I thought it was a wild decision for Reason to come out and say that Mo'unga was clear.
Yeah, no, I can't defend him. I know he's watching, so Reese, get in the comments and let us know.
Yeah, exactly. Defend yourself. But yeah, look, I mean, it's a very experimental French side. There are 33 debutants. There's no players from La Rochelle and Toulouse. So no Dupont, no Intermac, no Aldrit. Most of them are missing. An opportunity for Scotland, Wes, and if they win, yes, people will say, oh, it wasn't the best French side, but a win's a win, as they say.
Absolutely, win is absolutely win. But I think if we were trying to put ourselves in the shoes of the French fans, we're probably viewing it quite similar to what the South Africans are thinking about our game this weekend. As you said, very experimental. There's nothing to lose on the line here. Obviously, you always want to win, but if you were going to lose a game and gain some knowledge about your players, this is maybe the game to do it in. Scotland, I think, will be feeling sort of very, very different. They will be wanting to win this, to get that confidence, to solidify their side, potentially work out those small creases. And I think, yeah, for us South Africans, it's a massive booster in information, right? We're going to see the Scottish side sort of closer to the World Cup. That is going to be our big first opening game. So, as you said, eyes absolutely glued to this one.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, so Steve, you're talking about Russell. I don't know if you watched your mighty Italy last week. They didn't win an international match, but anyway, this guy Healy was playing 10. He looked all right, actually. I don't know if you got to catch the game.
Yeah,
I mean, Russell is the GOAT, but I had he actually played all right.
The heir apparent.
Yeah. So I mean, yes, I think Scotland have these players, but I think a lot of it's Scotland's thing is the mentality. It's like they don't believe they are winners when they actually have the capability. They have more ability. I'm just going to say that than Italy. I think there's more talent there, but they just when it comes to the crunch,
they are fifth in the world for a reason. To be fair.
Yeah. They score some good tries when they put it together. They're good.
Nah, for me,
I think you're right. I think this is an opportunity. I think Scotland might win this game. I think it's.
I think Scotland are aside. It's a bit like Argentina. When they win, it's always an entertaining win. They never win boring. It's always like really cool tries, really cool moments. Usually it's Stuart Hogg and Finn Russell just doing some obscene things when they rock up with their like annual masterclass where people sit there going like, what is happening? I know Stuart Hogg for me is a massive loss for them, both from a personality and a playing perspective. But I do think that there's every chance they could get a result this weekend. And as I say, I think the big thing is obviously Rassie and Jark will be PVRing that and breaking that down a lot on the weekend.
Hogg gets into this situation is really sad because at one stage he was arguably one of the best players in the world at his palm. It's a sad state of affairs that he's felt that he's had to call it quits before this World Cup because with that Scottish side, I still think them letting go over and Cotter was their biggest mistake. I mean, there was Stuart Townsend's fans, but that was the most ridiculous thing. He got them on a nice upward trend. They still had Cotter and they still had Hoggy. I think they would have been massive players.
But for me, two teams who are not playing particularly well, and also, I wouldn't say as experimental, maybe. Actually, probably both quite experimental. Roots, Wales versus England. Wales have got a couple of debutants. They've got a young 10 in Sam Costello. Very, very exciting. Cool little 10. Very keen to see how he goes in the international thing. It's also live after the likes of Alan Jones and no Justin Tipperick, which breaks my heart. Some of my favourite players to watch. But then in England side, Marcus Smith at 10. George Ford back in 23 off the bench. No Owen Farrell, no Mario Itoje, missing a couple of players. How are we seeing this one play out?
To be honest with you, since the departure of Eddie Jones at England, I think the wind has been blown out of England's sails. So as much as they do have sort of a few players like the Marcus Smith, for example, they have the talented, big, strong wingers, Kokani Sanga, for example. I'm not sure that we as South Africans have anything to be concerned about when it comes to semi-final time. I say semi-final time because South Africa is going to beat New Zealand in the quarterfinals, and then we're going to go ahead and face one of these punk boys in the semi-final. And for me, Wales, we've done them already in a few World Cups, so I'm not too concerned. It's going to be interesting to watch them play out and fiddle and faff against one another. But for me as South Africa, this weekend leading up to the World Cup, far more important. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. England and Wales, good luck.
Chris, talk to me about the Warren Gatland situation and the Wales cock-up shit show. I mean, there's lots of different ways you can...
Yeah.
And that's putting it politely, to be honest, because it has been such a ridiculous thing. How does Warren Gatland, who literally even said if he knew about what was going on, he would have actually not taken the job. How does he come into this environment and ready a Welsh side, which they've got players, you know, the fact that they've all departed and all picking up very nice contracts all over the world, they've got the personnel to be pretty good. We saw it firsthand last year. How does he get them? How does he make them competitive before the World Cup? Can he make them competitive before the World Cup?
I don't know. I mean, I admit I got on the Gatland train at the beginning of the Six Nations. I had some punts and calling better Welsh performances up front, but they got blown away the first half against Ireland, and most of the tournament they were shocking. And I don't know. Like you say, it's I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't say it's the best Welsh side. Obviously, those Grand Slam winning Wales sides were really good. And I keep harping, they were 100 potted missed kick away from probably making that final in 2019. You know, they had some really good moments, and but they're just not this. Yeah, there's something not right at Welsh rugby, and it's gone through the whole system there. And maybe the players, like I say, seem disillusioned. I mean, if Gatland's saying that as well out loud, I mean, that's not going to install much confidence into them. So I'm not giving Wales much of a chance, even though some. I mean, okay, it was I think it was Sam Warburton. He's really convinced they get into the semis, but I don't know. I don't see it. I don't have an answer. Welsh rugby is broken at the moment, and I don't want it to be broken. I want all those home nations to always stay strong. So I really hope that they can put it around. Well, because I mean, let's be face it. English rugby is also a little bit worrying at the moment as well.
And not just the national team. The Premiership is for, I mean, for 3 teams going.
Yeah, but also grassroots, it's dying, school grass. So it is worrying.
Unlike Australia, where Eddie Jones is saying we got to make the kids play rugby again. That's this big mantra. It's the only thing you can say at the moment. Ireland versus Italy. How does Ireland conquer the mighty Italy, who have got Paolo Garbizzi, who could also be one of the best 10s in the world if it wasn't when Finn Russell and Johnny Sexton retire and Alton Yankees is no longer part of the fray, so potentially could be the best half in the world in about 12 months' time.
You wake up now. You can wake up.
It would just be fantastic if Italy won. I know, but it would be glorious. No, I think, I mean, geez.
I mean, they've only been given a 16.5. 5 points. Look at that.
Lots of money to be made. Lots of money to be made on the other hand. I mean, just imagine. What if? No, I think it's going to be very straightforward. I think, the Italians will see this as an opportunity to test what they've got, to go out there and put the fire in the belly, but fire in the belly doesn't win you the games. I think Ireland will like to see their combinations, like their moves, test out maybe training ground stuff in a game scenario. I don't think they'll be too stressed, and yeah, it's gonna be one-way traffic potentially, but who knows?
Hey, just back my boys, guys. We're gonna come back and talk
I know,
about the spirited
but-
Italian performance.
But Stevie,
Yeah.
like I said, I know we're picking up the bet in there. I mean, I didn't mention these warm-up games because they are warm-ups, and you don't really see full intensity games in these ones. So that's why I'm not sticking my neck out. But as an underdog backer yourself, this is an opportunity to back those teams. I wouldn't do it. I'm too conservative. I couldn't do it. But if anyone wants to put small stakes on these underdogs, this is the right opportunity, the right spots to do it. But I won't be getting involved.
When do you think? I mean, do you think that's the case for all the World Cup games, or do you think it is one of those like in 2 weeks' time, where suddenly you're 3 weeks out from the World Cup? Do they become a little bit maybe easier to sort of punt because they're getting teams
No.
stronger, or do you think it's one of those things that a lottery up from now until the World Cup you're not going to call much?
Yeah, it's all personal preference. And to be honest, I love meaningful international matches. Like that's what I've bet for a long time. One of most successes. So I leave it alone. And World Cup's one of my favorite betting tournaments. I love it. I've done well in the past, so I'll just sit at the moment and watch it. And watch it. NPC starting its first week. I don't also go big first rounds of these competitions, so lots of observing this week for me. See how people get on. Yeah.
Right, well, fair enough. So, in terms of our coverage for this weekend, there will be, as you guys always know, lots and lots of coverage. So we will have a live match tracker for New Zealand versus Australia. That does start at 4:30 in the morning, which is an ungodly hour. And unfortunately, I'm going to be in a bus about an hour late on my way to play golf in another province. So I will not be covering that game. So we will have a match tracker for that. We will be live for Scotland versus France. Carl will be taking you through that from Scotland, in fact. Then Wes will be making his watch-along debut, as they would say. He'll be taking you through Wales versus England. So make sure you come. We're all going to jump on and absolutely rip them apart on the stream. And,
Yeah. No, I know the internet is a very forgiving place, so
Oh,
I
no,
can't
100%.
wait.
At least it's only Wales, England. You
Yes.
know, Nick, you could be getting Tonga and
Yeah.
Samoa, and you have to start naming, some of the names which are longer than like the alphabet.
Yeah.
So
Well,
at least
with all the
Wales, England, pretty
nationals and names.
straightforward. So no pressure.
Yeah.
And then Rudes, he's got the flag behind him. He will be with you this weekend for Argentina versus South Africa. It'll not be me. I know you guys miss me dearly. Every now and again, I do have to take a Springbok game off. This will, touch wood, be the last one I'll take off for a long time. But you'll be in the very capable hands of Rudes for what we hopefully will see is a very entertaining game. And,
Surely now.
no, there we go. And I just Rudes' optimism is going to come through on the street. My mojo's not been working for the last 2 weeks. I backed us to beat New Zealand, didn't work. I backed us to really go and put the hammer down, it didn't work. So hopefully Rudes' optimistic mojo will get the box operating on Saturday night.
So one day I'm going to do it, Steve, and I'm going to put a lot of money on that game because then you might get the channel banned because I don't know what's going to come out my mouth if my bets start losing because you don't want to see it. I'll do it just for entertainment. I'll do it for entertainment purposes though. But
well, I think what we should do is during the World Cup, we'll do the watch vlog and we'll have like a Chris cap. And we'll have what stakes you put up on the screen, and we'll sit there saying, like they've just scored the last minute try. We move down to Chris. You just see somebody beating up a PC and throwing hands.
You should have seen I was dating a Polish girl a couple of years ago, and I was watching the box New Zealand, and she couldn't. I don't know. That was maybe the beginning of the end. She couldn't understand this, what this was about. Like, how can I be so emotional?
She watched one more game and she's like, whoa.
You've never showed this passion in bed, Chris. Where's this coming from?
Yeah, she was like, where was this last night, man? A week later, she's there in a box jersey. She's like, right, come on. Right, there we go. And also, just for interest's sake, we will also have a tracker on for Ireland versus Italy. So those trackers for New Zealand, Australia, and Ireland versus Italy will be on Forever Rugby. So it is a nice opportunity to follow the match if you can't watch it live. We will have how to watch matches on the channel tomorrow. It's a bit complicated for the Players of the Cup and the SA games. Much more straightforward for the Summer Nation series, which is being shown on RTE and Amazon Prime as well, which has got, by the way, elite coverage. Amazon coverage is wild. The panels are cool. It's very, very cool coverage. So the box will be on there in 2 weeks' time for those 2 warm-up games. And the good news as well, by the way, is you'll be able to watch the entire Rugby World Cup for free using a VPN. Check out Bitdefender, check out ExpressVPN, both of them in the description there. I'm going to put the description in for World Sports right now into the comments and go and get your bets in for this weekend. Just before I wrap up and say cheers to the gents, before some of them go into load shedding, I'm going to look at some of the comments over here, pick out a couple of the interesting ones. And Contender earlier was saying, I think they may take both Inyakani and Detoy instead of Dweba and have Dion Free go as somewhat of a Skulk Brits role, which Dion Free does not like those comparisons, by the way. Play flank for most games, I won't be surprised if he has 2 versus Romania. Doug was saying we played for Rugby Championship last year in Durban and played cuck. Not wrong. Krista saying the reality is that we are not on the same level as the Irish, All Blacks and French teams. We simply don't have the informed players to do it in the World Cup. Adam says it's got to be de Klerk and Andre by far the best choice. Talking about the sort of 9-10 situation. Will saying Kilbus will be super hungry. Hope he has a great game. The heart says we beat France on the last game. We're all for that. And then Ahmed earlier says, how can the box beat the All Blacks? If they were physically and tackle them like demons, really. It's about the only way we can. He slip tackles against New Zealand. Yeah. As Will says, the only way is to outscore them. Have to bring the backline power. Gentlemen, before we wrap up, I want a Argentina-South Africa prediction from all of us. And if anyone predicts an Argentina win, they will be kindly, and in fact not so kindly, uninvited from future fan forums. So, Ruse, we'll start with you and work our way back towards myself. What are you going with the score prediction?
South Africa by 6.
South Africa by 6. Close game down in Buenos Aires. Chris, closer, further apart, easier, harder?
No, 32-25. Book win.
By 7, okay. So still sitting at a relatively conservative. Yeah, and now Wes?
I was going to say South Africa by 5. So even tighter there.
Yeah,
Chris, I'm bringing my money, buddy. I want to
yes. Put it on. Show us the slips, mate. Show us the slips.
Rudy's gonna have like the Bob jersey next week on, but like the actual like $2,500 Bob jersey, gonna be sitting there going, "Told you guys, by 6, easy work."
Or 5, 6, 7.
Yeah, man.
You're the decider, Steve.
I'll be a bit more risky. I'll go box by 10. Joseph to have a try as well. That's what I'm going to try and manifest. Yeah, who knows?
Well, he's throwing in skills. He could just throw it to himself from the line out, and he can get over.
Hey, we saw people going short and going down the short side and stuff like that. Yeah, I think there's a lot of players, a lot of questions to answer this weekend. And next week, we actually be talking about a World Cup squad. In fact, we might have to actually look at throwing together a bit of a fan forum on Tuesday to discuss the World Cup squad, which is going to be very, very cool. So I make no promises, but maybe, ladies and gentlemen, we might actually see you even sooner, because I think it would be a good idea to get everybody's thoughts on the 33 players that will be looking to defend the World Cup. But until then, we're going to leave you to go and watch all the other content. There's a Dion Free press conference. There are previews going up for all the games this weekend. Tomorrow we will have the captain's press conference, which will be Bongi, who always speaks very well and very sort of warrior-like when he goes to a game, as well as Ndila Stick, who's a laugh a minute. And then this weekend, check out all the guys on the watch-alongs. You won't see me on Saturday. I'll see you guys on Monday again. And yeah, I'm off to go and play some really, really bad golf. And yeah, leave the watch-alongs to you, to the 2 guys here, as well as Carl. Chris, thanks for the
shoulder warm-ups, Steve. Shoulder warm-ups.
Yeah, don't stress. I've been sort of at the range all week. Might have to have a young physio session tomorrow just to sort of really work out the knots. Might have to have a couple of beers tomorrow night to really loosen the swing out. But
there's absolutely no excuse. Oh, Rudy's gone.
Rudy's gone with the load shedding. Oh, there's the load shedding. That's heartbreaking. Well, chaps, before anything else happens like that, keep well. Chris, I look forward to a winning week. And Wes, we will see you guys all on Wales versus England. Everybody else, please do smash the like on the video. Subscribe to the channel as well. Thank you for joining us. As always, this is also available as a podcast on all your favorite streaming platforms. So if you're just joining us now, go and check it out there. And we will see you guys all